Hey guys, I thought I'd do a video that's a bit different from the stuff I've been putting on lately, which has been a lot about the BMS. I saw a video, maybe it's the turn of the year, by I think it was Adam Welch, where he was reusing some lithium cells, and I believe he used it for a infrared temperature sensor. And at the time I realised that I've been doing the same thing, not exactly in the same manner, but more for my children's toys, which is why I've got this array of things here. Now, it's a few different types of cells, but it was just to show how easy it is to repurpose some of the old laptop battery cells that you get, especially the ones that are a different form factor, which would be hard to use in a powerwall, unless you had them in absolute mass numbers, which is not generally the case. Quite often with the Dell pack, you'll get a few of the 18650 type cells, and then you get a few of the extra non-standard cells in. So it was just to go through a few of these and just to show some things of that, what is possible. One of the most basic ones that I've done is car here. It would generally take double A's, and it took 3, if memory serves, to roughly about 4.5 volts. So what I've basically done is taken one of these prismatic cells, a small TP4056, and that works just perfect. Voltage is there or thereabouts what it should be, and yeah, lasts a hell of a lot longer. No hassles. When the kids want to do it, use it. Just pop this off, plug the USB micro USB cable in there and charge, and fantastic. And you just leave the top off and you can get the visual indicator, as you can see, with the red light when it's charging, the blue when it's fully charged, and that's perfect. Not something I would let the little ones do themselves because it's a little bit loose, but it's all low voltage, it's no problem at all. If the solder joint comes off, that's easily repaired. And the beauty is that it just fits right back in the original connector. Original power switch still works. Perfect. Much longer run time and fantastic. The actual simplest one I have done, which I should correct myself, is there's a few of these little things now are starting to come with lithium batteries in them. Now this car, for the size of it, it's not huge, but it's a reasonable size, came with an absolute minuscule 3.2 volt 320 milliamp hour battery, which is tiny, unbelievably small. So the run time was minuscule. So what I did was took it apart to have a look because I was curious. Took that battery out, and then I've just popped in these, which were from I think Apple Mac MacBook, and yeah, just unsoldered the connection, soldered them straight onto here. You'll notice a lot of the glue because it was actually glued to the lid of the car, the cover, and that's come undone. That's why I've got it apart. But the beauty of this, it's got all the charging circuitry built in, with a micro USB in there. So this was even easier, because it was previously based on the 3.2 volt nominal cells. It just means it's not going to charge these up as much. You're losing a teeny bit of capacity, but just because the sheer difference in size of the battery, the runtime, it just keeps on going forever, I'll be honest. And the beauty again is, like I mentioned, still uses the built-in on and off switch, so that's perfect. From there, one of the latest additions, which Santa Claus brought, was this, which has this to go on, and is, whoop, I'll straighten it out. It's quite a cool little car, and it's pretty powerful, and takes a lot of punishment. But what they have done is they've designed it with some crumple zones, and I've actually started the parts that the kids are breaking, not intentionally, but just, you know, little bumps and scrapes. I've started designing those parts. So far, these little crumple zones are ones that really go a lot. So I've designed those, and they're on Thingiverse. I'll put the link below if people are interested. I'll put the link to the car as well. I think it was from GearBest, but great value. They broke one of these, Now see where it's a different colour, and that's just where it holds the pins for the top. That's been great, but the main difference was the battery. Now I shall just very quickly get the old battery, I'll show you. There we go. Now this is a lithium ion cell, as you can see there. But again, this is pretty low capacity. It's using 14500 cells, which are in total 700 milliamp hours, and that gives a 9.6 volt pack. And that's, to be honest, it's good, but it gives pretty low runtime. Now the idea is that it's high output, so pretty high amperage, and that's why it's the way it works out, you get the lower volume, lower capacity cells, and it's got fairly chunky cables in there. But what I did was had a look at, again, a similar prismatic cells from the Dells that I used earlier that I had, and basically took 3 pairs of these, and they're generally soldered up in pairs, spot welded, I should say, on soldered, spot welded up in pairs in the packs anyway. So I've just kept those, so these 2 cells have been together for the life. These 2 the same, and these 2 the same. And I've just put 3 of those in series, and then I've put a BMS on top. And what I did was I just looked for what type of connector it was, and I ordered up a pack of these connectors. It was £1.50 or something ridiculous like this, and that just allows me to, one, not only leave the original battery intact, so that I can have that as a spare, keep it charged, and the kids can use it, which is great. But then that also allowed me to, because you've got both ends in the connector, that allowed me to make my own charging lead. Now I've got a BMS on there, which is kind of essential because the cells aren't all perfectly matched up, and it's high capacity and high draw. So I found that I risked it for a little while and it just kills the cells, or at least kills one pair. Now I managed to pull it back up to voltage, it worked okay. It happened again. The car just gradually gets slower and slower, but it's not draining them evenly. So again, one pair of cells died, and it did properly die, so I had to rebuild the battery. So I fitted a BMS, and I just had this small cheap BMS, and that worked okay to a fashion, but then started cutting out, and it just wasn't up to the draw. So what I went and done was got a beefier, and you can see in the corner potentially there 40 amp, that's 3S, and it's perfect. And one of those things that just works out nicely. It just fits great back in the original pack. There was a cover that went on here, but it was a vented cover, so I'm not losing any waterproofness or anything like that. I think it's splash proof the car best anyway. And all I've done is got two Velcro ties over the top there, and then you can just plug straight into the car. And again, like I mentioned earlier on, you've got the original power connector, so there's no messing around. I don't actually like where that power connector is because it's quite hidden, so it would be nicer if it was on the bottom of the car or the back or something. I might extend a wire out from here and just split that off with an on-off switch, but it works fantastic. And for the charging cable, because all we're worried about is the positive and negative, we've not used any other connectors on here, and I've just broken that out to a 2.1 millimeter barrel jack, so that can go in any 12 volt adapter, and it's going through the BMS, and so that'll make sure that all the cells are charged evenly. Perfect. Much longer runtime, and because the cells were the 3.2 volt nominal to give it a whole pack of 9.6, and these are 3.7 volt nominal, it gives it a bit of extra boost. Not that it needed it because it's quick enough, but give it an extra kick up the bum, and it's fantastic. So it shows just how easy it is to swap these things out, and you don't have to destroy the cars and plastic cutting and such like. A lot of the time you can make it reversible, but you know, this was about £34, something like that. It's a pretty cheap car, and it's only got a few bumps and scrapes. This is not going to move on, but again, I could easily back out the changes, but it's perfect. In the last one, which is not a car, but one of my sons, one of my twins, is obsessed with fans. And I mean obsessed. Anything that moves around. So we've made him a small wind turbine outside and other things, but he's absolutely obsessed. So Andy loves pink. So hence I made this, which is the most pointless machine ever. It has fan inside, a single 18650, a charge, well, that's a board that can power the lithium, but then boosts it up to 9 volt if memory serves, which is just enough to get the fan running. I didn't want it running particularly fast. The cover goes on there and just stops the little one getting his fingers in. I say it's the most pointless device in that there's no holes at all on the back, so it's actually not going to give any benefit. Couldn't be used as a fan. But my small child, he can look through, put a small switch on the side, and it's possibly hard to catch in the light. Oh, you can just see there, you can see the blades. Yeah, a little bit of noise. It's just the most pointless thing. But it's great. Micro USB again, just for charging up. Small little switch. It's a very simple circuit. The one thing I have done is it was getting left on because it's been used by 3.5-year-old, and the cell had ran down and been depleted a few times. It's just a tiny capacity cell and just enough to get it going. But what I have done is, since I've made a protected cell, using the kits that you can get that go on the top and bottom, I will have got a kit here, which that's the actual protection circuit there. You have a couple of strips that go down the side, little cap and all the relevant bits and pieces there. Andreas Bees, I think, the Swiss gentleman, I'll move that out of the way, did a video on those, and those are dead handy. Cheapest chips to pick up, especially if you're just making a single protected cell. That's hot glued in there, little foam back in there. The fan doesn't have to be hooked in. That will go that way around. And again, it was just a little way to reuse an old PC fan, 80mm fan that I had hanging around that wasn't being used. One of the scrap cells, to be honest, that probably had 1,000 milliamps hours capacity, and a teeny adapter board that'll have been, coppers. And so yeah, it just shows how you can reuse bits and pieces. You'll notice it's a 3D printed case. 3D printing is another big hobby of mine, and something which I enjoy doing. A la this, which was another remote control car. I didn't end up using recycled cells on this. I used a standard cell, but I could have used recycled cells. Ollie's my son's name, no, one of my sons. And yeah, that was just a nice little design that took and remixed off Thingiverse. So yeah, so I hope this has been enjoyable. Just something a little bit different. It shows how you can use these scrap cells and what they can be, brought back to life, and rather than just taking the recycler. So yeah, cheers guys. Feel free to comment down below, share and subscribe. It'll be fantastic. And see you next time.